What is love? Baby, don't hurt me no more.
So, hey, this may look very similar to last week because this is the same week, and we got into so much good discussion on that one question.
Yeah.
We thought we'd make it Hot Seat Week 2.
Might as well.
Come on.
Marriage Monday,
Yeah.
Week 2, Hot Seat. Okay, that last question about the 5 love languages, that was really good. Easy. Give us a harder one.
Okay,
Come on.
conflict.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a twofold question. Okay, so the first one is, how do you manage external conflict, that conflict outside of your relationship? With one other person.
Okay.
How do you manage that together, and how do you resolve it when it's an outside party, right?
Yeah.
And then the other one, which is probably more want to expand on, is how do you manage conflict in between yourselves?
Yeah.
Yeah, with kids is probably a part of that.
Yeah.
And that the
Just
external.
always a part of it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
external
later.
and internal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
First of all, for those who didn't catch last week's episode, this is Hot Seat. We don't know what questions they're asking us. We're not editing this, and this is Zack and Izabella, who are going to be married in eight months,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So, catch last week's episode if you missed it. It was really good on the 5 love languages, and so conflict. Yeah. So if obviously kind of dovetailing off of that, if you don't know how to love the other person, you're going to end up in a lot of conflict.
Yeah.
Because my love language was time spent and physical touch, and hers is acts of service. I'm going to take things personally if I'm doing something for her, like rubbing her back, just like you were saying.
I do like that.
Or just time, like, hey, let's just hang out and watch a movie and stuff. And she's like, I've got a couple projects that I'd like us to do together, and we've ended up in some conflicts over that. Like, how come you don't want to spend time with me? And she's like, I do, but I want to spend time getting something done. Right? And that feels productive to her, where for me it feels like we're just not really being with each other, right? And so I think part of conflict comes from where we're not putting ourselves in the other person's shoes.
Gotcha.
Where we're not seeing where they're coming from, where we're demanding that they understand our point of view.
Yeah, I think a lot of like internal marriage conflict can come from expectations, either unarticulated expectations, unmet expectations. I mean, think about most conflicts we get in with other people. It's because there's an expectation we didn't know about, or was unclear, or was out of like beyond what we would expect, and so we get our feelings hurt. I think a lot of conflicts that we've had to work through is us. I mean, because you always have your stance on what you believe, but is that point of really being able to listen and hear without my filter getting in the way, because I know he hears things differently and he sees things differently. So for me to understand him, I have to be able to get out of the way I think and see things, which is very rational. It's very non-emotional. It's very like, I just see things very black and white. He sees things in full color. And so for me to be able to hear him and hear how he's feeling and thinking, I have to get out of like, what's that, like left brain, right brain, which is he's the creative, I'm the...
We're inverse. It's so funny. It's the exact same, but for...
So he'll see things in like this, big, and I'll just be like, it's black and white. And so I have to kind of get myself and think, this is, he's feeling this. It's, and the same vice versa. We have to be able to kind of allow ourselves to feel and see the way the person does, or at least value it.
Makes sense.
Because I don't always value emotion. I don't always value all those things, but I have to realize that that's who he is. So for me to hear him, I have to value how he values things. Is that accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. And conflict is an important part of your relationship. It's
not a sign of unhealth either.
It's not. And actually, if you don't know how to work through conflict, you're kind of setting yourself up.
Definitely.
A lot of couples that have gotten married without actually having faced any conflict, they're the ones that I'm really worried about. Because they go into it thinking everything's going to be just roses, right? And then it comes up smelling like the stuff Roses is planting in. And you're going to have to deal with that, because there's going to be places where you're going to come at it, and you're both firstborns, right?
Yes.
Yes. So you've already got
sparks
flying. That's another, for those of you who are watching this, there's the birth order really plays into a lot of how couples communicate with each other.
Definitely.
And so I'm a firstborn and she's a lastborn, and so that's even another place of learning where the other person is coming from, because I want to take things head on. I want to talk about it all. I want to deal with the conflict right here, right now. Let's talk about all of the stuff. And the more I push to do that, the more I'm actually pushing her away, because her thing is, I need time to process this. Don't push me to have an answer or to resolve this thing right away. And so instead of where my style was everything's on the table and her style was everything's under the rug, we came up with this 24 on the floor. We're not hiding it. We're not going to dissect
deal with it, but just chill out.
But we're going to give ourselves 24 hours.
That's good.
Because if I know we are going to deal with the conflict, then I'm good with giving it time. If I think we're never going to go back to this thing, then the tension level just begins to rise in me. There's something unresolved, and I cannot have any other conversations about any other thing until we deal with this.
And if I'm being pushed to like solve it right now, and I'm just like, you just deal with it yourself. Then like you like you're all of this. You go. So I think part of conflict is actually learning how to fight well. I don't think we don't really fight like we're not yelling, screaming kind of fighters. That's just not our personalities. But we've had to learn how to not fight well, or communicate well, or conflict well, and ultimately to do it with respect.
Makes sense.
And to do it without saying something that's hurtful or saying something that you can't take back.
For sure.
To be respectful and honoring in it.
That's really big.
External conflict. That's almost easier, I think, to deal with, because it's not as personal. It's not easy, but we've dealt with a fair amount of external conflict. And really, I think having Jesus has been the only way we've gotten through with some of the external conflict we've dealt with. Is just really having to be, I think, more and more just people of prayer. And keeping our circles small with who we process stuff with and how we process stuff.
That's big, huh?
And I mean, he's my best friend, so I'm going to process stuff with him. And I'm going to trust that it's safe there. And I know that he's going to bring it to the Lord. That's something we talked about a couple weeks ago on Marriage Monday too, is marrying someone that you know seeks Jesus. Because we're going to have our flesh response, we're going to have our emotion response, but ultimately I can trust that whatever conflict we're dealing with, at some point he's going to bring it to Jesus, and I can trust that.
That's awesome. That's big time. I think that was oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
That was one of the biggest things in our relationship that for me I realized, I think we're like good to go, was when I was kind of going through the decision of moving from Seattle to down here in San Marcos, and we had a conversation, and because that's a decision now that we're this deep into dating at that point. It's like, okay, well, this is going to affect our next X amount of years, right? So I said, well, what do you think? And she said, you know what? I really trust that you're going to hear from the Lord. And having that conversation was so big, because we realized, oh, wow, we have a trust in each other that goes past just what we think the other one wants. So that was I think it's so important, right?
And that will literally be the rest of your life.
Exactly.
That will literally be the rest of your life. One decision after another, one level of decision after another is your trust in the fact that you hear God.
Definitely.
Your trust in the fact that you hear the Lord, and you trust that in each other, and you're not going to get it right. And there's going to be times where you're like, I screwed up. That was not it. I missed it. Okay, we're going to move on. And you grow through it.
Yeah, I think only other thing I'd want to add on that, for at least for this session, is the lightning rod. Is that Cyndi and I are best friends. You guys are best friends, and that's a really good thing. We process through everything together. But I've realized that I needed a lightning rod outside of her, especially if some of my frustration or conflict is actually with her. I need to be able to process it through with somebody else. No,
normally somebody
of course
else.
not. Yes, absolutely. But especially with all the change of transition of our year, I've had to find somebody else to process through stuff, because I found, just like with a lightning rod, it grounds that lightning so it doesn't fry or electrocute anybody.
That's great.
And I found myself taking things out on her that didn't actually have to do with her. That just had to do with the stress and the emotion of everything going on around. But I was frying the one that I loved the most. And so I've had to find a couple guys outside of my marriage that I'm able to just kind of process through, be really raw with. And then when I'm with her, I'm able to be, I'm able to cover her rather than frying her or my boys with all this anger and emotion that I haven't processed well.
great.
So I would recommend, you guys,
Yeah.
if you don't already have one, find a lightning rod, someone that can just ground you. They'll hear it. You can be as raw and unfiltered as you need to be.
Yeah.
Let out whatever needs to get
not
let
hurting
out.
them.
But then
Yeah.
it doesn't go any farther. They don't
That's
spread
great.
it to someone else. They don't like, hey, let's talk about Zach because here's what he told me. It
Yeah.
has to be grounded.
Yeah.
And then
That's
just
big
like Cindy said, they have to bring you back to Jesus.
Yeah, it's
I
that
heard
person,
you.
Yeah.
I acknowledge you. Let's go ahead and bring that to
Yeah.
the Lord,
Yeah.
right?
big.
Yeah, someone that's not just gonna listen and be like, yeah.
And commiserate, yeah.
Yeah, and commiserate, but say, what is the Lord speaking to you about? And then someone that's going to push you back towards Christ. That's huge.
That's it right there, man. Dropping some knowledge on us. Huh? We definitely need it. We know how to have opinions. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not bad though.
No,
you know
it's
what?
not.
Better to have them than be someone who doesn't have it. But
Yeah.
we have them whether or not we feel like we do.
Definitely.
But
Yeah.
if you internalize everything, you'll just
Yeah.
like blow up on each other. But
Big
if you
time.
already know you got them, just that's
Yeah.
good. It's half the battle.
Very true.
Yeah, and
I'm excited
ultimately
for you
God
guys.
brings a man and a woman together to bring them closer to Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we realize how much we need Him to
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
another person the way Christ
Yeah.
loves the
Especially
church.
long term.
So,
Yeah.
thank you guys
Thank
for those
you.
questions. We may do this
Anytime.
again. Let us know. For those of you who are watching, if you've got some hot seat questions that you would like asked,
Him to answer.
we would love love to be able to answer those. If you are engaged, if you're dating, if you're married, if you're empty nesters, let us know how we can be praying for you, because our goal through all of these is that we'll get through this stronger than we were before.
Yep.
So thanks again for your time. Thank you guys.
Right, yeah.
Thank you
soon.
guys.
All right.
Come on.
Woo.
Bye.
God bless.
What is love? Baby,